Today, we're going to talk about the final hours of one of the most important figures in history, the second Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab. His death wasn't just the end of an era. It's this incredibly powerful look into leadership, humility, and accountability that honestly still has so much to teach us today.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Umar has just been fatally stabbed while he was leading the dawn prayer. It's a shocking, horrific moment. As he's lying there wounded, the people around him are just trying to process this immense tragedy that's unfolding right before their eyes. So you have Ibn Abbas, who was a close companion, and he's trying to comfort the Caliph. He's reminding him of his incredible life, right? His devotion, his tireless struggle alongside the Prophet, and now being killed as a martyr. He's basically saying, don't worry, your place in paradise is absolutely secure. But this is what's so fascinating. Look at Omar's response. Instead of feeling comforted, he expresses this deep, profound fear of God's judgment. Think about that. Even with a lifetime of service like his mind wasn't on his legacy. It was on his own personal accountability before his creator. And that right there, that's really the core theme of his final moments, this astonishing level of humility. And we're not talking about some kind of false modesty. This was the genuine, overwhelming awe of a man who knew he was about to meet God. And to really get how deep this humility was, you have to remember something absolutely crucial. The Prophet Muhammad himself had actually named Omar as one of the people who were guaranteed to enter paradise. That fact just makes his fear and his humility all the more remarkable. Can you believe it? These were his last words. Not some grand statement about his life's work, not a final order to his people, but a desperate plea for mercy. It just goes to show you a consciousness of God so profound that even a promise of paradise couldn't make him feel entitled. He even told his own son, Abdullah, to move his head off his lap and put his cheek right there on the dirt floor. It was this physical act of total submission, a belief that maybe, just maybe, in this lowliest of positions, God's mercy would be more likely to reach him. So in these last hours, Omar's mind wasn't on politics or who would succeed him. Nope, it was focused on one final, deeply personal wish about where he would be buried. He sends his son to Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, and gives him a very specific, very carefully worded message to deliver. I mean, just listen to that. He insists on dropping his own title, leader of the believers. He knew that in these final moments, he wasn't a caliph or a ruler. He was just Omar, a servant of God and nothing more. And his request? It was simple, but it was for something priceless. He wanted to be buried in the same room as his two greatest companions, the Prophet Muhammad and the first Caliph, Abu Bakr. This was, without a doubt, the most sacred burial spot in the entire Muslim world. And this is where the story gets even more moving, because it tells us just as much about the character of Aisha as it does about Umar. You see, that very spot, right next to her husband and her father, Aisha had been saving it for herself. And who could blame her? But when she heard Umar's final wish, she performed this incredible act of selflessness. She gave preference to him over herself. Just amazing. Interestingly enough, Umar's death also ended up becoming a really important moment in Islamic law. It brought up a question that scholars had debated, and his specific case helped provide a clear answer. So here's the question. Normally, a martyr who dies right on the battlefield isn't given the ritual washing before burial. Their blood is seen as a kind of testament to their sacrifice. But Umar's situation, well, it was a little different. And that's where the debate came in. So you had two main points of view. One side said, look, anyone who is unjustly killed is a martyr, period. They shouldn't be washed. But the other side argued that, well, if the person survives for a little while after the attack, if they're able to eat or drink or just live for a bit, then the normal burial rules, including the washing, should apply. And that's what ended up being the deciding factor. Since Umar lived for a time after he was stabbed, and he drank some water and medicine, the companions decided that he should be washed. A funeral prayer was held for him, and this set a really clear precedent for how to handle similar situations in the future. Now let's talk about the impact of his death. You can only imagine the shockwave of grief and just sheer disbelief that rips through the entire community. The people who were there described it as this massive collective mourning like nothing they'd ever seen. People were just openly weeping everywhere, as if they had lost their own father or son. The loss felt personal to everyone.
And this metaphor from another companion, Ibn Masud, is so powerful. It really shows how people felt. They saw Omar as the strong fortress protecting the faith. With him gone, it felt like the walls had been broken down and they were suddenly vulnerable. But, in the middle of all this pain and tragedy, there was one piece of news that actually brought Umar himself a little bit of peace in his final hours. When they told him that his killer, Abu Lu'lu'a, was a mujin, not a Muslim, he was so relieved. See, his biggest fear was that maybe he had wronged a fellow Muslim so badly that the person sought revenge, and that would be something he'd have to answer to God for. So it really leaves you with this powerful question, doesn't it? Umar's last hours weren't about solidifying his legacy or clinging to power. It was all about this profound humility. It's a model for any leader, really, that your true character isn't just measured by your victories or your accomplishments, but by how you face your own accountability in the end. His final moments of submission, you could argue, teach us more about leadership than all his years of conquest combined.